This is Back Your Blue with A Second Chance Bail Bonds. Daniel Madelon, the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. What's up, man? How are you?
Doing well. Trying to get back in the swing of things.
I know, right? After having some time off last week, getting back in the swing of things sometimes can be a little difficult, but we got a great guest today, Chaplain Dorie Griggs from the Roswell Fire Department. And after a bunch of different public relations and marketing jobs in college football, which, goodness gracious, college football has been great lately, professional sports too, and hospitality. Dorie attended Columbia Theological Seminary, where she earned a master's in divinity in 2002. And her final year at Columbia, she developed a model of chaplains. Am I saying that right? Chaplaincy? Is that the correct way to say that?
That's correct.
I'm old hillbilly. Sometimes I get that stuff wrong. Yeah. Chaplaincy for journalists who cover traumatic events, and is now the chaplain for the Roswell Fire Department since 2017. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my gosh. How do you look? And I go to church every Sunday. My family, we're believers and very proud of that. But there's never been a time that I was like, you know what? I think I'll go to theology school. I'll go get a degree in theology. What in the world made you decide to do that? I mean, I think it's great. It just seems like such a different direction from what you were doing prior to that.
Well, it's interesting how life brings you through different experiences. And if you had told me 30 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I would have...
Not a chance.
No way. But, my early background was in sports PR and marketing. And in those years in the press box, I got to be friends with a lot of videographers, photographers, writers, and broadcast folks. And one of the videographers from a local TV station told me one time that when lists of most dangerous careers come out, photographers and videographers are way up on the top.
Is it because they get run over by players and things like that?
Well, no, it's, in small markets like Richmond, Virginia, where I was, you don't have specific, videographers just for sports. They cover breaking news and so forth. So they'd be coming in to a game, having just covered a shooting or something. Well, there was one plane crash, and the guy said that they had cleared the area, but he stepped on a body part.
Oh, my heavens.
On the way to the, and it's like, how do you deal with that?
Sure.
And then, in riot situations, you can't just disappear into the crowd with this big camera. And you're there to get the story to begin with. So you're putting yourself in the line of fire. And then you end up getting targeted yourself. And to do your job properly as a photographer or videographer, you have to get close to the action. Where other reporters can stand back and observe, but to get the images you need to be closer. So that kind of stuck with me over the years, and I went from sports to working for hospitality industry, getting sports teams to stay at properties. And then I ended up working for a church retreat center here in Atlanta. It's no longer open, but it was called Simpsonwood in Norcross.
Okay.
And there, all these ministers were coming for retreats and so forth. And by that time, I had lost both parents by the time I was 34.
Sorry to hear that.
I've been through a lot of loss and did a lot of reading and got to the point where I needed some back and forth. And that's where the tug to go to seminary.
The tug. I like that.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
Way to work it in.
I try.
You do good work, I can tell. You've been doing this a while.
But so I got to seminary and started taking pastoral care classes, and we learned that we're going to hear a lot of stuff, and we need to find our own support. And I started thinking, my husband's a photographer. We have lots of journalist friends, and the things I was learning about self-care, I was like, what, do journalists get educated on, you're going to see some awful stuff? And I started asking my friends about their journalism school experience, and no, it never really came up. You're just a young cub reporter put on the cop beat. You see your first dead body on the scene, and if you're in a small town, you could know that person. And there's no training. So I started asking questions and found the Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma, which has nothing to do with faith, but everything to do with preparing journalists to be sensitive when they're covering victims of violence. And they're now at Columbia Graduate School of Journalism in New York City. Wow. At the time, they started at University of Washington in Seattle. And I did some volunteer work for them, and eventually the founder, Dr. Frank Ochberg, I asked him about how I could get experience. I'm not a first responder. I'm not a journalist, how can I get into those scenes? And he suggested volunteering for the Red Cross. So I did that for a couple of years in the early 2000s, which encompassed the Katrina years.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That time. And it was an amazing experience to be on the ground, and Red Cross at fire scenes and so forth. We come in when the fire department is leaving usually and work with the families.
Yeah, because the fire departments put out the fires, and the leftover stuff is handled by somebody else.
Right. So that was tremendous experience. And from there, to be a chaplain, we actually have a PR problem. Chaplains do. First of all,
do?
Yes. Most people spell chaplain like Charlie Chaplin, the old silent film actor.
Yeah.
The P-L-I-N, and we're P-L-A-I-N.
Okay, well, yeah, that doesn't sound all that bad. I mean,
No.
Does that create the PR problem?
No, but you've got the name thing, but then most people don't know what a chaplain is.
Okay.
In a general population hospital.
Really?
Yeah, I did my residency at the VA hospital here in Atlanta. And in a military environment,
everybody knows what the chaplain is. I was in the Navy, so yes. I knew prior to that, but yes.
And fortunately, most military people have a very good opinion of their chaplain.
Yes, ma'am.
But in a general population hospital, you've got people who didn't grow up with a faith system, have never heard the word chaplain. So we show up in a room. The only way they know chaplains are Father Mulcahy on MASH or Father Brown, who show up and give last rites when someone dies. So when you walk into a hospital room in a general population hospital and someone's not of a faith system, they see the word chaplain, they think they're dying.
Oh, my heavens. Wow. That has never entered my mind ever before. This is I'm today years old when I learned that.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic. So sometimes you have to explain what you're there to do. And in hospital chaplaincy, which is highly regulated and high bar for education and training, you have to have an undergrad degree, a master's degree, usually a 3-year Master of Divinity degree.
Wow.
And then a year full-time training where you're seeing patients and have 40 hours visiting patients and 10 hours education before you can even apply to a hospital.
Goodness.
And
that's more qualifications than most people have for any job in the world.
Yeah, it's equivalent to a psychologist, your basic, not your PhD, but master's in education, education requirements. So we're trained to be a ministry of presence to people of all faiths or none at all.
Yeah. So
what gets confusing for some people, because you have chaplains for sororities and fraternities, nonprofit groups will have their club chaplain who will do a reflection before a meeting sometimes. So the word chaplain is used for a variety of things, and the context determines how you proceed. In a hospital, it is very important to be present for everyone, and we help people access hope wherever that might be. And sometimes it's your religion, sometimes it's your family. You may have your own belief system.
Is it hard? I want to make sure I say this delicately, but it seems like it's a question that should be asked. Is it hard being a chaplain, being a woman of faith, speaking with people that aren't faithful in a way that they don't feel alienated? How do you speak for the people, because you're coming from a faith point of view, and obviously our faith, we want to bring people into our faith, so this is a good opportunity to do that. But it seems like it could be a very tricky situation, especially when things are dire, like a hospital.
It can be. And each person will answer this differently, each chaplain. I have a background in interfaith dialogue. My first job out of seminary.
Does that include people of no faith?
Yes.
Okay, because that's I think a valuable question, because I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, the Free Thought Society. I produced an interfaith dialogue television show first out of seminary, and had people of all different faiths or none at all on talking. How they, but just about everyone, even people without a faith, have a sense of morally what's right and what's wrong.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's inherent.
So. It's just a matter of listening and learning how to ask questions and listen to the reply. and help people see their way through a tough diagnosis, end of life situations, and so forth.
Are those opportunities, or have there been in the opportunities in the past where you've seen people that gravitate to faith after they've been in a situation that you are introduced to?
Yes, there are people who start experiencing things that they didn't have words for before.
Sure.
And they couldn't explain it. And they'll come to all different faiths
Of course.
way.
Sure.
And, a lot of people, our faiths determine where we're born a lot of times.
Sure.
Statistically. What I learned during the several years of the TV show was that how we live in community doesn't vary much from faith system to faith system. How you treat the least of these,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
How you live in community together, and caring for children, orphans, and widows is
Yeah, it's
in the
there's
Christian
a staple.
faith.
Yeah, it's a staple across the
But
board.
that doesn't vary very much
Sure.
from faith system to faith system.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. We're talking to Chaplain Dorie Griggs of the Roswell Fire Department. We'll continue this conversation after this on Extra 106.3. This is Back Your Blue with the folks at A Second Chance Bail Bonds. Daniel Madelon here. He is the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. More next on Extra 106.3. Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Coward along with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. The reason that this show exists, and Daniel, I feel like this is something that you probably have experienced, at least something similar, because Dorie talked about the role of people behind the camera being very, very dangerous because they're right in the mix of things that are going on. The dangerous situations, whether it's a horrible car wreck or a shootout at the gas station or whatever. Your business kind of lends itself to something relatively dangerous too, especially when you have to pursue people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's pretty much every day. Just different forms and fashions of how it happens. But yeah, no, we definitely.
Yeah, it's a dangerous line of work.
Yeah, well, and sometimes like even on cases where it's that we've been involved where there's been a SWAT standoff or something like that, a major occurrence on a fugitive that was on bond with us, and then that piece sometimes that goes wrong, you know what I'm saying, and then they would be involved.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's some overlap there.
There's some overlap.
Goodness, hopefully it doesn't happen that much, but I can see where it would on occasion be that way. Dorie, in April of 2014, you were named the 2014 Pioneer Ministry Award recipient through Columbia Theological Seminary in appreciation for your ministry of presence with journalists that we talked about in the first segment, in support of parents of Citadel cadets down in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how about that? So my son's at college in Charleston, so we're really close. We get down there a lot. We walk by the Citadel a whole bunch. So it's a splendid place. Charleston's a great city. So congratulations on that. I know it's been 10 years now, but walk us through how all that came about.
Well, my oldest son was a freshman knob, as they're called, on campus in 2007. And it was a whole new world for me. Military school.
Sure.
Sending a child to a military school is unlike any other college thing. It's kind of comical in hindsight.
Yeah, sure.
When all your friends are talking about designer sheets and how they're going to decorate dorm rooms.
Yeah.
You get a list of what to pack. And it's basically underwear, socks, and shoes.
That's all you're going to need.
Because you cannot wear civilian clothes your knob year within a 10-mile radius. I believe it's still 10 miles of the campus.
Of the campus, yeah.
And then not only that's before they get there, and once they get there, they tell them how to fold it, what drawers to put it in.
I was in the Navy. I remember all those days.
All the things, and it's a whole nother language. It's a whole nother culture.
Lingo is just out there in left field with a football bat.
Scared to death that I'm an extrovert and I chat a lot, and I was convinced I was going to ruin my son's career because I'd say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and I wrote terms down. Everything I learned, I wrote down. And the way I deal with anxiety or uncertainty is to learn as much as I can about something. So I read everything. I read all the Pat Conroy books his first year just to get my head around someone who went there and the mentality around it. Learn the website. learned how to search, and it was about that time that Facebook groups started, and blogs became a thing. So I started Facebook groups for the company. He was in Bravo Company,
Okay.
1st Battalion,
Sure.
and other parents were doing the same thing in the other battalions and companies. And by the time he graduated, I ended up attending a conference. This is where the journalism and trauma overlap, at the Carter Center for Returning Veterans in Mental Health. I was the only faith-based person in the room.
Wow.
And one of their fellows at the Rosalind Carter Mental Health Journalism Program asked me to contribute to her military blog.
Okay, nice.
As the mother of a cadet, soon-to-be military officer, Army officer.
There we go.
And so all those things combined to my entries to her blog ended up getting more hits than the other contributors. As I say, you never underestimate the research capabilities of an anxious parent.
My wife is in that same boat, so I've seen this play out in our lives.
Yeah. So when my son graduated, I thought, okay, that's done. I'm moving on to something else. So I put everything I learned up on a blog. And within a year, people started finding that blog and emailing me and calling me, asking for advice, parents. And I thought, well, I'll start a Facebook group for the incoming NOB, parents only, because they all have the same questions. So I'll answer the question once on a blog.
And you'll see it. Everybody can know where to get it.
Well, then people started joining, and then it got bigger and bigger till I did it for about 10 years, and the school has taken over the program.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Yeah, there was a new parent liaison in the provost office, and as soon as they named him, I said, here, this is what I've done. You can have it.
Bounce pass.
And he asked me to come to Charleston. We had a meeting, and he asked me to stay on as he was getting more oriented to his
acclimated.
position and so forth. And we worked over 4 years for him with parent volunteers.
Man, you must have been doing some extensive work if it took him 4 years to do what you've been doing. Goodness gracious.
Well, it was a lot of work for a volunteer position, and I met some amazing people. Going to a military college, parents end up making friends.
Oh, yeah.
You do a lot of waiting.
Yes. Hurry up and wait, the military way.
Yeah, the cadets are not in control of their time, especially NOB year. So you're waiting outside of the battalion until they have to sweep floors or whatever task.
Clean toilets.
Given.
I remember doing that a whole bunch.
Yeah. So that's how I started, and it was very much being a chaplain to anxious parents. And it was about the time I finished my residency at the VA that this is a segue into how I got into the fire department. I was passing along all the Citadel stuff. I'd finished my residency at the VA. Our youngest was a junior in high school, and I didn't want to work full time. And Roswell started a community emergency response team group, which is a civilian organization, national-based program to support first responders. And they heard about my background, and before you know it, I was teaching the disaster psychology unit of the
surprise,
classes
surprise.
after me. And then I got a call from the lieutenant saying our chaplain, who is the Catholic priest in town, his parish duties were too much, so he had to back down, and I've put your name forward for the chaplain position.
Were you excited about this to the point where I'm sure it was an honor, but I mean, with everything you had going on already.
Yeah, no, that was exactly, I needed to say, I am a chaplain at a place, because what I did with the Citadel was so out here, and no one had ever done it quite that way before.
Trendsetter. We have a trendsetter in there, because there's never been one time in my whole life anyone's come to me and say, hey, you did it the right way. Let's follow your path. I'm the exact opposite. Everyone's like, whatever he does, avoid it.
Yeah, God seems to have me on an interesting journey.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a lot of different things I've done that I didn't go in to say.
You didn't expect to.
Yeah, it wasn't like I intended for that. It happened, and go with it. So it's kind of neat that way. But yeah, I met with the fire chief, who was Chief Ricky Burnett at the time, and he had me meet with the deputy chiefs, and And then I became chaplain in 2017.
Goodness gracious. So let's back up a little bit, Daniel, and we'll bring in some of her other stuff. Chaplain resident through the Clinical Pastoral Education, the CPE program at the Atlanta VA, which you referenced in 2015, received recognition for your work on the surgical ICU team with the Daisy Team Award. I mean, you got more awards than anybody I know. Goodness gracious. Certified peer support counselor through the Georgia Department of Public Safety Office, Public Safety Support, and member of the City of Roswell's first responder peer support team, which you addressed there. Life-saving resources based in Cobb County, and you were named one of their 2022 Tribute to Achievement honorees. Again, more awards. And then that leads you up to the Roswell Fire Department. So how's it been going since you've been there in 2017, starting in 2017?
Well, it was interesting because I was the first woman chaplain they had, which is a big deal in a town that's always done things a certain
small town. They get set in their ways a little bit.
Yeah, Roswell's more a good-sized city now.
No,
but
sure.
We're still like a small town. We think of ourselves as a small town. It's a wonderful community.
Sure it is. I love Roswell. I live in Alpharetta, so right around the corner.
Yeah. It's a great place to raise your family. All my kids went through rec league, ball, and dance classes, and you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is such a terrific place. So what kind of things are you doing at the fire department now? Like, what are some of the activities that you participate in? What is it that keeps you busy during the day?
Well, with the fire department, it's different. In a hospital, they're used to having chaplains, and we have a specific role in a hospital, which I'm also part-time at a hospital.
Part-time chaplain in a hospital?
Yes.
Can you say which one? Is that okay?
Emory St. Joseph's.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah, the Sisters of Mercy did a great job of setting the culture there of pastoral care being part of every discipline. So
tip of the cap for them for recognizing greatness.
Yeah, thanks. But in a fire department, what I found, first responder chaplaincy is different than hospital chaplaincy. It has a long storied history in fire. Usually local congregational clergy would serve as the chaplain for the fire department, and you respond both at events but also for the staff, for the firefighters.
Absolutely, because they've also seen
so forth.
some really traumatic stuff as well.
And it takes a while to build relationships, especially when you're like me. I wasn't a firefighter when I came in, and I'm still not a firefighter.
Did they have a hard time with that?
Not really. It's like in anything else. You're the new person. They don't know you. So the only way to really get to know firefighters is to do ride-along days.
That and eat.
Right.
I think they do really good work in the kitchen. I mean, let me tell you.
Oh, there are some amazing cooks.
Absolutely. And that's, Daniel, come on, that's the time you get to know people, right? I mean, this is the reason people go to dinner as social events.
Yeah, have meals together.
Yeah, man, just to be able to get to know one another. And I know the fire department loves to eat, and I love the fire department for that reason.
Yeah.
I should have worked there. I mean, I'm not tough enough or strong enough to do any of that stuff, but if I were, that would be the place I was going to be.
Yeah,
because in the Navy, you're a firefighter. Everybody's a firefighter. Because it's not in the middle of the ocean and something sets on fire, you don't have a number to call. There's no 911. You are 911. So I learned quickly that I was not going to be an effective firefighter. I did the things that they asked me to do that I needed to do, but I recognized that I didn't have the ability of some of those other fellas.
Yeah, they do amazing work.
They do.
And the training that goes into what they do, I don't think the general public understands it. They're continually training and getting different certifications for there's different specialties that they can take classes in and become certified. Extrication, vehicle extrication, and
some pretty traumatic, back to the point, there's some pretty traumatic things that they have to train for and then ultimately see and use that training. And I think that's probably where you come in.
Yeah, and that's where the fire department has a built-in support network, because your work is a team. It's not an individual job. Everyone, and this is where my sports background came in.
Yeah, it probably helps.
Sitting around a dinner table, I realized this sounds familiar. It was like sitting around a pregame
meal or something,
training table.
Yeah.
There's normal trash talking back and forth
sure.
and so forth. And then with the basketball team, they go out and they put that aside and they play as a team. the firefighters, when you ride into an event, and there was one that was a garage was on fire, and I rode in on the engine, and there's a lot of joking amongst themselves on the way there, not about the event,
but just
about whatever just happened in the station and so forth. As soon as you pull up to the event, they put the vehicle in park. It's game face on. Everyone falls into their specific roles, and my role at a scene like that, my first role is to stay out of their way.
Sure.
But then look for the family or the business owner, depending on what the scene is, and I stay with them in concert with the incident commander, who's usually a battalion chief and something like this, and help the family process. And most people who are first responders are trained to do something, put out the fire. Hospital, it's nurses and doctors are helping someone feel better. Chaplains are trained to be with people in some of the worst times of their life. Loss of property, loss of life. And people in general feel uncomfortable around someone who's grieving.
Right. Being people in their most vulnerable moment, because you don't know what to say.
And the worst thing to do is not say anything at all. At the very least, just say, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I can't change this. I can't make this better. And as a chaplain, I know I can't make this better, but I can be here with you.
And hold your hand through
it. So let you know you're not alone. And that's very powerful. If you think about times where you've had a trauma or a tragedy or a loss in your family, you remember the people that were with you. Not what they said, but just that they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of what chaplaincy is, just being there with
present,
someone.
being in the moment. Daniel, over at a Second Chance, at a Second Chance bail bonds and monitoring for that matter, I heard Dorie say she's there with the family to process what's happened. Do you ever have to do that with people that are family members of people that have maybe done something that is, whether they're guilty or not guilty or have not found out yet?
Oh yeah,
having to help people process stuff like that.
Well, yeah, because it's a crisis, right? So someone's been put in custody or whatever the case is, or it's a relative. Yeah, absolutely. Some people have never been through the process at all, so you have to really explain, like, hey, yeah, we might post a bond, but you might not see this person for 2 days. Like, are you good? Like, you understand this is what
right.
And you kind of have to walk them through that, because obviously the expectation is instant gratification. We want them out now.
Right.
And unfortunately, sometimes the system just doesn't allow for it.
And you have to explain it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Or you have to explain the nature of the charges. Although we're not attorneys, we do not give legal advice.
No, of course.
But we see this stuff every day for 20 years. You kind of understand what's attached to some of that stuff.
Do you ever have to be sympathetic to those needs? Because it's easy to. I would think it's easy. Because you've seen it so much, you're like, not a big deal. Here's what's coming. Do you ever have to slow down and really explain in a way that you wouldn't normally, because you've seen it 1,000 times, but it is their first time?
Yeah, like domestic violence, for instance.
My gosh,
is another thing where you have a lot of spouses or partners. They want to get each other out, right, of the scenario, and obviously there might be a no contact order. There's all kinds of stipulations that are put into the bond orders. Well, they don't understand that, and they're like, well, why? It was just an argument. Why can't we still be around each other? And it's like, yeah, but no, the judge said there's a no contact order, so therefore no. The answer is no, and if you do, this is what's going to happen, and this is what the ramifications are.
Good.
So there's, and that goes for, that's just domestic violence. Then you just stagger that out, DUIs and different things with people losing their licenses and stuff like that.
Dorie was talking about regular training to get better. Do y'all do that too? Are there training that y'all do throughout the company, but anything like that what she does, where you have to train to help?
So there's nothing that's required
people?
State-wise,
or is it,
but we have our required state continuing education and stuff like that, which is basically based on the industry, state law. But then some of that stuff, depending on what part you're working in, what segment of the business you're working in, we try to promote training, but there's no specific required training.
But it's something that you want your company to be able to do.
Oh, absolutely, because the more, the way I look at it is the more information we have and we can give to these people is the better off they're going to be in making their next decision of what path they go down.
Absolutely.
So we try to be as proactive as possible and give people that information.
Yeah, talking to Chaplain Dorie Griggs of the Roswell Fire Department. What's some other things that you participate in there at the fire department? Obviously, the ride-along, we covered that, but I'm sure there's many other things that you got your hands involved in.
Well, the ride-alongs are a big part of what I do in building relationships and stopping by the office. There's the public-facing ceremonial duties of blessing or invocations for our city council meetings. We just had a Veterans Day ceremony for the city of Roswell. Mayor and city council do that each year, and I give the invocation for that. There are the occasional funerals, weddings. I haven't had a fire staff wedding yet. I've officiated weddings, but I'm waiting to.
Yeah, that one's coming soon.
That'll be fun,
especially with some of the younger gals that are in there.
Yeah. Probably the best thing I got to do as a fire chaplain was hold brand new babies.
Oh, so sweet.
And during COVID times when no one can visit, as clergy, I could.
Oh, nice.
So I got to hold one of the babies who was less than 24 hours old.
Oh, so that's sweet.
That's one of the best things I get to do. And then there are public events, and I'm just part of the team at that point. And with the holidays coming up, there's holiday heroes, Shop with Heroes, that they match firefighters, police, 911 communications folks with children. They have a budget that they can go and buy things, and it's usually they buy something for each person in their family and something for themselves. So getting to participate in those public events is really fun too.
Oh my gosh, I would imagine so. And you want to talk about developing relationships. It's wonderful to be able to develop those relationships with younger folks. That way they have someone in their life that is pointing them maybe in the right direction, even if you just see them occasionally around about town.
Well, it was amazing. Last year, we show up in uniform, and a couple little girls just came up and gave me a hug. They had never seen a woman in uniform before, and they didn't know what I did or anything else. But
they just knew we're drawn to.
Yeah.
Which I
so
love.
Are you in the actual fire? You come out?
I have a Class A uniform, which is this. It looks like a suit.
Okay.
The formal.
Right.
Looks like a military Class A uniform, but also regular white shirt, tie, badge. Got a badge.
Yeah, looking like a professional. There you go.
Early on, I joke that I got things. Something would happen, and then I'd get some. Oh yeah, we need to get you this. I went to a structure fire. Home was on fire, and they were taking artwork off the wall before they had to put water on the roof line. The firefighter said, I don't know much about art, but this looks expensive. If I bring it out, can you bring it to the family? So we had a relay going.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to stop because I didn't have a helmet.
Oh, no.
So I have a helmet now.
No, right. But in that moment.
So we were able to get some other people to get everything out. But a lot of times people don't realize before they know they're about to put a lot of water in there. There's antiques or pianos and so forth. They'll throw tarps over those
and try to protect what they can.
Try to protect what they can. They do an amazing job.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I
didn't know that either.
That's so. It's just another layer of gratitude that I have for our servants in the community, our firefighters, police officers, EMS. They do so much that we have no idea about them doing, and that's just one example of it. Just the fact that they care enough about something that doesn't belong to them, about something that they are there to protect the home, but they take the extra moment to say, hey, that's something I bet is valuable to the people that we're trying to help.
Yeah, they do what they can before.
Sure.
In some cases, if it's fully involved, it's a different story.
Of course.
But
just taking that extra moment is just.
They do an amazing job, and a lot of one thing that people don't know is there's the fire departments respond to about 75% of their calls are medical related, not fire.
That's a big number.
The EMS.
That's a big number.
Calls, yeah,
that's a lot.
Holy cow. All right, we'll take a break here because I want to come back and talk about the peer support counselor that you are through the Georgia Department of Public Safety and what all that is involved with, and just wrap up with good stories with Chaplain Dorie Griggs of the Roswell Fire Department here on Back Your Blue from A Second Chance Bail Bonds. Daniel Madelon, the CEO of A Second Chance, here with us on the show. My name is Tug Cowart. This is Extra 106.3. Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3 with Daniel Madelon, the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. My name is Tug Cowart. We're here with Chaplain Dorie Griggs of the Roswell Fire Department this weekend. And I want to ask you about the peer support counselor, because that's what you do through the Georgia Department of Public Safety. What's that all about? Because I don't know that I've ever heard of that. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's a statewide program. I can't remember how many years. It's like at least 5. There is a department for peer support. It's recognized that suicide is one of the biggest dangers in this type of work in first responder world.
No kidding. Military too, because those are the same thing. They see those traumatic things happening, and it causes true pain inward, the invisible wounds of war, if you will.
And they, through research, found that peer support, getting someone trained in that field, police, fire, 911 dispatch, emergency medical, to understand the signs of burnout, to stress, anxiety, and so forth, can be the single factor that means someone will ask for help or talk to their buddy that they're on shift with, or someone else in that system. And in Roswell, years ago, they decided, instead of having fire, 911, police, we all trained together. So we went through, at first it was a 3-day class for peer support. Now it's a 40-hour full week class in peer support training that those of us on the team have all been through. We've been doing it long enough that we've been recertified. Every 3 years you have to take a refresher course, and it's overseen. It's a statewide program. There's confidentiality is guaranteed. We're by law.
Sure.
We're not allowed to.
It's like a HIPAA thing, right?
Yeah. So, I'm used to that in the hospital environment, but this is a big deal in first responder world, that they're really supported by people who they work with every day, already know, but have the extra training to recognize
some of the struggles.
The struggles.
Yeah, sure.
So, and we're fortunate to have our fire chief, when he came in almost, I guess, 2.5, 3 years ago, said peer support and chaplaincy were some of his priorities, because it's known to help the mental health of the team.
Firefighters in the team, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in Roswell, we work so closely with the police department and 911 dispatch. So we're on scenes together. Where my work is concerned, I often get called to unexpected medical deaths, suicides, and so forth. Mm-hmm. Our fellows will call me, but by the time I show up, if there's loss of life, it ceases to be a fire rescue scene and becomes a police scene. So I work closely with our officers, and sometimes it's a cultural thing. People are from different countries and so forth, and I know enough about different traditions and so forth, so I can work with them. So do they
have a chaplain also? So you guys
They have our police department has some volunteer chaplains. So
Gotcha.
A lot of times I'll get a call, and because I work part-time in another position, chaplaincy, and I can't show up, the police chaplain will show up, or it just depends on the situation. But we all know each other and work well together, and it's all a
get
team.
The job
it's
done.
One Roswell.
Yeah, it's get the job done.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. You guys are like MacGyver a little bit.
Yeah, we have a tremendous team in the first responders in Roswell. Chief Jim Conroy and Deputy Chief Linnea Rivard, and our fire chief Joe Panino and Deputy Chief Pabel Troche work together, and our teams work well together. Of course, they have their little back and forth.
Well, yeah, the police department, fire department, they're always going at each other, especially, because I know a lot of those guys, they work out together. They live close by to each other. They participate in athletic leagues together. So there's a lot of back and forth. I know there's a lot of overlap with police and fire departments because they do such similar work. I mean, I say similar. In many ways, it's very different, but it all has the same goal, protecting Roswell.
Exactly.
And so to see them overlap like that is not surprising at all. What other things do you do with the police department Are there other things that carry you into their line of work?
Well, as a community, Roswell does a lot of community events. We have a live Roswell.
Yeah, so was it every Thursday?
The third Thursday
Yes,
of the
there we
month
go.
between April and October.
So awesome. It's one of the best events in Metro Atlanta.
It's amazing. So we each have tents at that event, and usually next to each other, and we'll get like the police chief to wear the fire hat.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Vice versa, and those kind of things, and silly, fun little rivalries. We had a kickball tournament.
That's awesome.
We called it. Let's see, council member Sarah Beeson had a little trophy that she got. We called it the Battle of the Badges, or
Yes,
the
sir.
Bob.
Yeah, right. We got the Bob Trophy.
The Bob Trophy. So that was fun.
That's
So,
always good.
yeah, the police joked that they called in that the field was clear and the fire can move in.
Yeah, that's right.
Those kind of,
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
jokes.
Yeah, we're like when their big kicker comes up, be like, we have a fire emergency. He's got to go. He's not be able to take his kick. You know
The other thing we have in Roswell is a foundation, the Roswell First Responders Foundation, which helps out when firefighters, police, 911 have something above and beyond family-wise, medical issues and so forth, that unexpected expenses. The
happen.
foundation is there to help, and that's one way the community can support both fire and police, or through the foundation.
Can you tell people how to learn more about that, websites
I
or any of that
believe
stuff?
it's just Roswell First Responder Foundation.
Or you probably do
.org.
just a search
if
and get
if you
to it.
search Roswell First Responder Foundation, it's either Roswell First Responder Foundation.org or RF.
Whatever the initials are.
Yeah, whatever the initials are. .org.
Yeah, that's right.
.org. Michael Hernandez is the head of the foundation, and
Sure.
they do a tremendous job.
RoswellFirstResponders.org.
That a boy. Look at Daniel Madeline
I knew
over there.
I was close.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, knocking it out of the park, making sure we know that we have the right information.
Correct.
What are some ways that people can be in contact with you if they ever need you in a situation? Social media, or is there phones, or what's the best way?
Usually, if you call the main number for the fire department, the Roswell Fire Department, they'll channel it to me.
Okay.
It's rare for citizens to call me directly. I'm usually responding out
Sure.
at things, but I'm happy to talk to anyone who would be interested.
That needed it.
Yeah, my email is dgriggs, Griggs, at roswellgov.com.
Wow, that's a mouthful. At roswellgov.com. Okay,
Yeah.
wow, that's that's gonna be tough. You may have to rewind it if you're listening to the podcast version. You have to rewind that one to get that one. It's a good one. Chaplain Dorie Griggs, Roswell Fire Department, the chaplain there. We just appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing what it is that you do, and we need more folks like you in this world. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
You're absolutely right,
fun.
Daniel.
Thank you.
It's always a good day to spend some time with you.
Always.
And the folks at A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring, because without them, we don't do Back Your Blue here on Extra 1063.